What we are going to do is we are putting border security policy to the voters.
I'm not as emotional this time as I was 14 years ago, but I'm angrier because I thought we put that behind us.
Last week, Arizona lawmakers advanced what would be one of the toughest immigration laws in the country. The Republican-sponsored Secure the Border Act would let voters decide in November whether local law enforcement officers can arrest undocumented border crossers, a job that courts have ruled falls under federal authority. Republicans say they're doing the job that Democratic President Joe Biden and Governor Katie Hobbs won't do, stemming the historic flow of migrants and drugs across the southwest border. For opponents, the Republican ballot referral raises the specter of Arizona's SB 1070. At the time in 2010, the law was the toughest immigration law in the country. The U.S. Supreme Court blocked it from taking effect. The House and Senate could pass the resolution referring the bill to the November ballot this week. Governor Hobbs can't veto it. Joining us to discuss the potential impact of a November vote is Joseph Garcia, Vice President of Chicanos por la Causa. Welcome back to Square Off. Good to see you.
Hey, Brian.
First, I do want to run down key pieces of the ballot referral. Voters would be asked to give Arizona law enforcement the power to arrest border crossers. It would also mandate broader checks of immigration status for people seeking jobs or government benefits, and also impose tougher sentences for fentanyl-related deaths. Now, the immigration enforcement piece is understandably getting most of the attention. There are a lot of veterans of the fight against SB 1070 were at a Capitol News conference last week to oppose the bill. You were part of that group. What were you thinking as you're standing there and all this was going down?
Yeah, we've seen this movie before, so it's almost a part two. It's a cheap sequel, but it's more harmful than the initial one, SB 1070. Unfortunately, a lot of Arizonans, since there's a lot of newcomers to the state, don't know what SB 1070 is. So there's a lack of familiarity with the harm that this law could cause our state, our economy, our community. As you know, even racial profiling has cost Maricopa County, more than $200 million for that under Sheriff Joe Arpaio. So there is real economic harm to everyone. So this isn't just an anti-Latino, anti-immigrant bill. It is anti-Arizona bill.
And for a moment, just go back to the SB 1070 days. You make an excellent point. 1 million people Arizona's grown by 1 million people since SB 1070. That's a lot of people, a lot of memories not there. A quick summary.
Yeah, essentially it was turning local law enforcement agents into Border Patrol agents, where you could stop someone under suspicion of them perhaps being an undocumented immigrant, which in our community it was known as DWB, which is driving while brown or driving while Mexican. You'd get pulled over for any kind of minor infraction or no infraction at all, detained, and haven't basically proved you're an American citizen. But it is targeting the Latino community at large, trying to sift through our community to find who might be here without documentation, regardless if they've been here for 1 year, 5 years, 25 years, no matter how much they abide by the law, how much they contribute to our economy, they were targeted to be deported.
Now, supporters of this law say, potential law say, that there would not be any racial profiling. It is only about targeting undocumented people who cross the border illegally. So not in communities, just cross the border illegally, focus solely on the southern border counties. Do you think it's just limited to that?
They say a lot of things, don't they? They say it's not SB 1070, and they kind of removed any kind of language from that because they know the branding is bad. But this is based on SB 1070. This is to return to that. They're hoping to relitigate SB 1070 at the Supreme Court under a very conservative MAGA Supreme Court and get a different outcome. Texas is doing the same with SB 4. So the idea is to relitigate everything and come up with a different response, similar to Roe v. Wade, where we went back to Arizona in 1864 law banning all abortion. But we got to be careful how far back we go, because 11 years earlier, Mexico began right at the Gila River. So how far are we going to go back on these laws?
Yeah, we'll see about that. But
one other point I want to make is that they say a lot of things, that it's not going to racial profiling, but yet they have a clause in there about immunity for law enforcement officers, have all immunity. So they know there's going to be abuses and of these cases and enforcement, but they're going to give immunity already to people before it even happens.
There is immunity in there. There's nothing in the the text that limits enforcement to southern Arizona. This can be enforced across all of Arizona.
Absolutely.
And bigger picture, because to my mind, this might be even more significant than SB 1070. This will be a voter-protected law if approved. How is a voter-protected law different from something the legislature?
Yeah, you can't overturn it at the legislature. This is bypassing the governor. This is putting hands in people who are afraid, looking at the border crisis, not understanding that you don't solve one crisis by creating a bigger crisis. This is what this law would do. But the idea is trying to drive people that live in fear or they're perhaps even prejudiced or have a stream of nationalism to the polls. This is all about getting more voters to the polls. But interesting enough, SB 1070 galvanized the Latino community like never before and got more Latinos involved and empowered in the election process. I think we're going to see the same thing with more Latinos. If it does reach the ballot box, more Latinos say, you know what, I got to vote, I got to stop this because this is out of control and it's insane.
Do you acknowledge, though, that the border is out of control right now? The Biden administration has not gained any meaningful authority over it. We see the video constantly. Cartels pick different spots where they're going to send people over. They become like travel agents. Do you acknowledge there's a problem and something needs to be done?
I will acknowledge it, if you will acknowledge it, and Republicans will acknowledge it, that they had a border security bill in the House that was bipartisan that they refused to address. In other words, the conservative Republicans, the MAGA Republicans, want to continue the crisis at the border. There was an opportunity earlier in a Senate bill to solve the border security problem. They chose not to even hear it. And
just to wrap up, kind of a spoiler alert for voters, if this does get approved, as we expect it will, and go to the ballot, this piece of the law would not take effect unless and until Texas's SB 4, upon which this is modeled, a very similar law, gets through the court system and is upheld by the courts, which could be a year or more.
Yeah, I think it's similar to a lot of things we're going to be seeing across the nation, is that there's going to be a lot of litigation, as I said. So right now we're kind of becoming part of the airplane circling the O'Hare Airport, waiting to land this, and hopefully the idea is to never let it take off, and certainly never let it land. So that's where we're going at. Latino and business groups, business community already is speaking out against this. So we know who we are. We're wiser now. We're smarter now. The side that is against this is ready again. The side that is pushing it again is just pushing the same old flawed policy.
Got to end it there. Joe Garcia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.